Zein Majali is a sound and visual artist
whose work explores the collision of technology with a rapidly evolving political landscape, with a particular interest in a
post-colonial and globalized Middle East. Her recent performance work has been presented at the V&A Somerset House and the ICA.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Cool. Thanks for that introduction. I have been following your lectures for quite a while now, so I'm honored to be part of this summit. But this is somewhat new to me, as I usually hide behind the screen and present my work in a performance where I let farmed content speak on my behalf. But here we are talking about the work. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of my practice and some of the ideas and research that I lean on while making the kind of work that I do. My thoughts are a bit scattered in this presentation, but hopefully some of you can take something of value and then take it into your own work. Okay. Does the sound work? Yeah. Okay, as that AI voice mentioned, I primarily work with sound and moving image. Although for the past year I've been focused on performance specifically and experimenting with taking various snippets from the feed, riffing with it, making music with it, and then presenting it in a live setting. I guess I haven't been doing this for a while, and not that long ago I was working a lot of desk jobs in Jordan where I grew up. And then I guess I fell into this shitposter to artist pipeline that a lot of my favorite terminally online friends found themselves in. Of course, this wasn't accidental, but came from a need to find meaning in what I perceived to be like a crumbling sense of reality or a loss of center. And I think I left my last real job in data analysis at this American NGO after they partnered with Palantir. And I was tasked with going to a lot of these remote villages in Jordan and mass collecting data. And I think that's when I had my definitive confirmation that humanitarian work isn't as innocent as it lets on. And yeah, that's when I packed up and moved to London to study contemporary art. The reason I mention this is to say that a huge part of my practice has had those two themes of bumping up against big tech, but also the methodology of finding meaning or narrative in disparate raw data that I collect either firsthand or compulsively download. This compulsion got worse over time with the proliferation of technology and AI and reality getting more and more obscure. And what was once a task of witnessing culture evolve online became this perverse cyber tango, sort of, and like a co-evolution where we're collectively watching ourselves both shaping and being shaped by emerging technologies. So I'm just going to show you a snippet of an intro to this performance that I did in September, I think, to give you an idea of what I mean when I say I make music with farmed content.
You cannot make this up! Donald Trump just announced that J.D. Vance is going to be his vice president. You cannot make this up! You cannot make this up! You cannot.
like looking at funny things on the internet. But my sense of humor has mutated into something I no longer understand.
Okay, anyways, it's just like a little teaser just to get you in the brain rot headspace, which is where I kind of want to start our conversation today. So one challenge artists in this field have to face is avoiding doomerism in response to the hyperflows of the internet. And my performance work can on its surface be read as like a dystopian depiction of modern life. But for me, this process of archiving, sequencing, and creating around this content becomes more of a survival strategy. This kind of editing feels like you're giving the internet an almost tactile quality, sort of running your hands through it to see what new modes of language and thinking it can harbor. And if you take it apart and recode it, you can maybe see it in a new light. And then throw it back into the ether to see what other meanings can be derived from that. So the act of like performing this, to me, becomes like an alternative mode of communication when language alone isn't enough to contain our thoughts and how we construct reality. So it becomes a sort of dialogue through affect. With limitless content, your perception is moving so fast that orienting yourself can feel extremely difficult. But responding to it in this way becomes like a touch point for how you're feeling at the moment and allowing for other people to respond with that, how they're feeling. And I guess doing that with bodies in a space has this effect of meaning being co-produced. Oftentimes when I'm struggling with understanding my position on something, I sometimes resolve that after a performance. And I guess there's something to be said about like openness and porosity that comes out of long form posting in a room of strangers. But yeah, this article that you mentioned, I'm mentioning again, different quote, but Caroline Busta talks about this in that piece, Hallucinating Meaning. She says, what if in a time of infinity content, a meta-reading of the shape and feel of content has become a survival skill? The ability to intuit a viable meaning via surface-level qualities, ones that are neither text nor image but a secret third thing, is now essential for negotiating our sprawling information space. Perhaps we're tapping into a more primal human intelligence. And like, while chopping up beats on Ableton is probably not the type of primal intelligence she's talking about, I think attempts at articulating that experience is welcome in the art world today, which is why I enjoy you and Jen's work so much, and also Dana Dawood's project Open Secret. I feel like it plays like on that register. It's like how, I guess for me, it's like the how do we move past the ubiquity of screenshotting and sharing funny or dystopian takes that we see everywhere today? And how can we make it more interesting or move culture forward? Beyond the meme and the screenshot, beyond Wojaks and a gallery, I mean, I have no problems with these things, but can the images do something else? I think there's something to be said about the speed to which you respond to a current event or mood, doing it as you're processing it without the need to follow any sort of academic rigor that artists are tasked with today. It makes it less static as a piece of work and doing it quickly. So it's not like quite music that you want to listen to, but not refined enough to be a video piece. I don't know, there's something fun about that process. But one annoying thing about it is that the work becomes outdated as soon as it's performed. It doesn't have lasting power in that way. There's like a degree of disposability to it that I feel like is true to how music is consumed today. And it gets pretty frustrating as an artist when you get booked to perform and everything feels like it's already expired after you put a lot of time editing it. So yeah, one way around that is I end up using older tracks or video work as building blocks for the next gig, which is how I ended up doing this doom scroll series where it's sequential and you can like vary it up every now and then. Yeah, but we can talk more about process later. For now, I kind of want to link this practice of aggregating digital scraps with my interest in Middle Eastern politics, narratives around identity, and post-colonial histories. So in having to navigate this landscape of the accelerating and often oppressive tide of techno-capital, artists engaging in this practice have sometimes have to offer themselves up as sacrificial lambs and dissolve the boundary that separates their lived reality and torrent of digital life, eating up as much content as they can to try to make sense of it. And I feel like Middle Eastern artists do that to an intensified degree as they witness horrific and obscene images from people and places that they love. So I try to draw parallels between this type of acceleration and post-colonialism. Lately, I've been flirting with this older idea of decentralization and the fracturing of community as people go deeper into the dark forest spaces online, and how there's a strange analogy one can draw from that to the fracturing of Arab states post-Western infiltration. How in some ways Arabs were sort of primed for this experience way before, and a lot of the Western ideals that have shattered after the onset of the genocide, like belief in human rights, international law, democracy, liberalism, whatever. I feel like the West went into a full-scale panic mode when that went away. But this trust in institutions, legacy media, governance, that's something that you're very skeptical about growing up in the Middle East. And in a way is resonant with the online experience as of the past 7 or 8 years. And it's interesting to think about that and how AI panic is so dominant in the West compared to the discourse on AI that's happening in China, where AI is seen as less of a rival and a threat, and people are more embracing of its future potential. I guess you don't really hear that much about AI hysteria in the Middle East, perhaps because we're used to existing in this hybrid register after colonization. But who knows? I guess we have bigger fish to fry. Okay, I'm gonna play some more music now. But yeah, attachment to identity is something that I often challenge in my work. I guess in the 2010s we were obsessed with globalization and the flattening of culture, which then turned into a schizophrenic condition that emerged after a collapse of war, porn, selfies onto the same plane. And this set a desperate need to root yourself as people. A desperate need to root yourself as people double down on the importance of identity, often confusing it with agency. And I think now we've become so far gone and have no shared reality or even a common understanding of the role of identity and authenticity and how, the role it should play today. So it's a bit fair game to make fun of it, in my view. Sorry. But yeah, I guess I'm an advocate of having fun when you're making art. Two things that the platform gods instilled in me is the need for things to be kind of funny, but also the forward momentum of duetting with other forms of media in the network to rise up the vector of platform visibility. I'm going to play a bit of this just to show you what a live performance of this nature could look like. But this multi-screen one is the most elaborate one I've ever done.
walk around with them bands and I breathe shit. This gun ain't gon' jam when I blow, I ain't missing. We walk around with them bands and I breathe shit. This gun ain't gon' jam when I blow, I ain't missing. We walk around with them bands and I breathe shit. This gun ain't gon' jam when I blow, I ain't missing. I'm dropping hit after hit, I'm just chillin', but I send it hit while I chill with my children. The big in the business, the big in the office. I fuck around and found me a swag and I call up, they call for my artists, they making me offers. I don't even bargain, I start from the bottom. I lost a Ferrari, I was making no bother. I woke up the following day and went harder. I'm cracking my shit, now they see that I'm smarter. I gotta get money, I love to get charter. I gave them 4 burgers and 1 sports starter. I can't let them down off around with my guard. I'm screaming out YOLO, yeah, that's still the motto. I know I be on some shit that they ain't thought of.
Dovetails nicely into the next project I want to talk to you about, which has its roots in like post-colonial discourse. Personally, I think it can get a bit exhausting to think in the binary of victim and villain. And there's a lot of post-colonial work out there right now that does the job of communicating the suffering endured through colonialism, but I think it's a healthy step to think through the hybridized and syncretic bodies that arose from such a violence. And speculative fiction considers like this approach where they take the adventurous component from sci-fi, such as traveling to a distant realm and taming the exotic flora, fauna, and people. But they, like with speculative fiction, I feel like there's more space to subvert it, to allow for the experience of the colonizee to critique it and pervert it in a way. So there's this story I found while I was doing research about a famous British general, Glubb. His name's Glubb. We call him Glubb Basha. This is him. Let's play it. Yeah. So Glubb drastically transformed Jordan and its army after World War I. And I don't know why the specific story sort of opened up a new perspective for me. But sometime in the 1930s, this general was leading a group of Bedouins who camped out in the desert near some gypsies. Girls from that camp then joined the Bedouins, where they danced and partook in physical familiarities with the men, who were not strange to that kind of treatment. This behavior horrified this general, who had constructed an image of the Bedouin as gentlemanly and chivalrous. And then he got like really pissed off and started burning things in the camp, most notably the Bedouins' headwear. This is Glubb's account of the scene. My gesture was intended to express my opinion that they were not men. The laborers, who saw no harm in their handling of the gypsy girls, were mystified by my action and merely thought me a little mad. And his disappointment sort of stems from the Bedouin men's failure to live up to the fantasy he had projected onto them. And I feel like by opening up these perverted fantasies of the colonizing subject and inspecting these weirder forms of colonial cultural construction, maybe you can allow for new avenues to creatively deal with the discomfort that's not often available when you are constricted by like a straitjacket of victim-heavy narratives that are kind of like way too rooted in the cancellation of agency. So the looping video that I was playing is from a moving image work I made back in 2022 called Propane, where I collaged found footage and generated imagery, and it's sort of done like viewed through the eyes of the eternal and neutralized young girl. The piece explores like fetishistic power dynamics of Western intervention in the Middle East, I guess over the past 100 years. Propane has this short voiceover portion of what I call post-colonial baby talk, where I'm sort of addressing an aggregate dominant daddy figure who raised me, promised me the world, armed me, and then ghosted, mirroring the West's failure to fulfill its promises of self-governance to the Arabs in exchange for their assistance after World War I.
Hi, Daddy. I really, really miss you. I remember when you drove home. You told me I was a good girl. You taught me how to oil a rifle. But then you left me. Did I do something wrong, Daddy? Can you see me? I miss you, Daddy.
Colored eyes, pink and gold chain, $1 million babe, we'll put all up on propane.
So this format was freeing in that it allowed me to address these kind of topics with a tone that is part and parcel of the online experience. It also applies this layer of abstraction and affect that hints at the ways Western generals dominated the Arab subject beyond structural force. I guess the piece explores this inorganic disruption of insufficiently imagined nation states with the digital artifact of buffering and references to media training that are kind of used as an analogy of something that's in a state of becoming. It's funny, I did this piece before Alex Kicho's viral, before she published the piece, Everyone's a Girl Online, which I would imagine is required reading in your class, so I'm not gonna get into it. But there's a clear through line there, and I felt like she really managed to put language to a lot of things that I was feeling at the time but couldn't articulate. And for me, adopting that method that she suggests we can use has an added benefit of being vague enough not to draw attention to the political side of my work, from authoritarian regimes back home. Maybe not so much in this piece, but definitely in the Brittany piece that I'll play later. But it's sort of like using the language of the algorithm to avoid algorithmic targeting or something. Does that make sense? I have this, but it's kind of long. Maybe I'll just
No, I'm not meant to replace humans, but rather to assist them.
Ice cream so good. Ricky Lopez. Slay, huh?
I think I'm just gonna forward to the Britney piece. Yeah, I think it.
This used to be a dancing app. Now I'm converting to Islam. This used to be a book club. Now I'm reading the Quran. I've trained my algorithm so well, it's seen the God-shaped hole in my heart before I ever did. My life coach told me that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, where does that leave me when it comes to democracy? I read the letter to America by OBL and said, "Hole up, son. Let him cook." When you say anti-establishment, you mean be bisexual, eat hot chip, and lie. When I say I'm anti-establishment, I mean I want to join the Ummah and see shifts on a higher plane. We are not the same. So I watched the feminism leave my body as I joined the Islamic resistance movement. Because the practice of posting has gotten me nowhere. How are you feeling, Anon?
So the Brittany piece is actually part of a series of short AI videos that I did called God-Shaped Hole. And it was mainly inspired by the, narrative collapse and unforeseen patterns that emerged from experiencing gut-wrenching brutality on your phone after October 7th. And the ideological confusion or possible alignment to armed resistance, but rather than taking a stance on it, I use this coded language to heighten the tensions between those contradictions. So using AI-generated imagery felt appropriate here, especially because you're leaning on a popular video that's tweaked to become frictionless in a way, but still contains its original signifiers. And that slight uncanniness it produces is a good way to communicate a space that's caught between binaries or poles. AI also felt appropriate because of its relationship to the censorship of dark political content and that eternal attempt of tech companies trying to both filter it out but also somehow achieve a total and planetary AGI. It's a funny dance. Okay, so I just like to summarize. These are the ideas that I've been working through for the past few years since I graduated. But looking back at the stuff that I was attracted to before I studied art, again, you can see a through line there where I'm just attracted to this idea of contradictions and confusion brought on by a global circulation of products and data from these weird American t-shirts imported into secondhand markets in Amman that are so dissonant with the conservative cultural setting that they're in, to garbled text about mental health that's used on car stickers, and a mishmash of signifiers embedded into these banned t-shirts. Sorry, it's funny. But yeah, I feel those objects that I came across pre-pandemic were oddly prophetic, and that they almost operate on the same register as early AI models where you can kind of see it cook. And they were signaling, and what they were signaling was the ushering in of a complete loss of a semiotic center. So one thing this work is allowing me to do is explore how I situate myself in all of this. And in sharing that with other people, it's helped me synthesize new ideas and open up a space for more generative conversations. But there are some things that I'm still trying to resolve personally. The main one being this urge to step outside of techno-pessimism, because rotting in that space for too long can be counterproductive and ultimately kind of boring. But it's hard to completely decouple from that and go full-scale techno-optimist when time and time again the Middle East is somehow punished in the wake of Western progress. So maybe AI, the Chinese AI, will save me. Anyway, all this talk of like a loss of center and meaning, I'd like to end this with a track that has like some pop philosophy and more notes of despair. But the visuals are really a work in progress, so be kind. It's just kind of to get you in the headspace of what I've been working on lately.
The right wing is using that.
That's what I wanted to tell you.
Yes, let's talk about that a little
Here we see how the old liberal left, who put such high hopes, this multiple communication, well, the new right is much better at it, but what worries me more is that in some sense...
You're becoming a beta.
I like a certain degree of centralization in the sense of there is a big public space.
I don't want to be your Therian girlfriend anymore.
What?
You don't have any motion and you stop to look
That something appears there. Now, if we get this dispersion, all of us have our own media and so on, this will contribute to this parcelization, dispersion, and so on.
Don't yap to me anymore.
Okay, we can maybe change the canon, but I'm basically for canon.
That's the problem. All you do is edge and goon.
The canon has a function to give you certain central points of reference. If you lose this, we enter a confused universe where people can be much more easily manipulated.
Yes.
What's a moving bed that drives men crazy every time?
I feel like, no, you gotta give him that. You gotta warm it up like it's a fire. You gotta take it, you gotta go.